Well, good afternoon. Welcome to this little video. This one's about anxiety and all of the emotional states that lead to anxiety, depression, fear. Fear is the overall, I guess, but anxiety is how you experience fear at a certain point. And one of the things that is common for me is, as a teacher of the universal curriculum, I often have students. It's a funny thing, that idea of students. It's like there's this whole dynamic that's divine, and in that there really isn't a teacher or a student. There is just mind waking up. But in the play out of the idea of there being students, I often have students saying to me, all of these workbook lessons from A Course in Miracles are bringing up a lot of anxiety. And the temptation, I guess, is to want to put the workbook lessons away or put them down and not continue with the thing that seems to be prodding at you and provoking that anxiety to arise. But the thing you have to realize is that anxiety is within you. It doesn't just come from somewhere out there and you take it on board, because you wouldn't take it on board if it was out there. You'd push it away. It's already in you. And it's separation anxiety, all right? So we'll get to that. Separation from God, from source, from the all, the whole. The whole point of A Course in Miracles, the whole point of doing a mind training study, a mind training application, is to confront the fears and confront the blocks to the awareness of love's presence within you. Right? So you shouldn't be surprised when that brings up fear. That's exactly what you're looking for, and it's exactly what you're trying to find. Okay? You're not trying to find the kingdom of God, because you're already in the kingdom of God. You are the kingdom of God. What you're looking for is the things that prevent you from recognizing that about yourself and within yourself. And the removal of those by defaulting that whole thing that you find, the whole package of energy that you find that seems to be fearful or full of anxiety, to the Holy Spirit for the healing of your mind around it. So if you think about water going down a plug hole in a bathtub, it's a kind of a primal fear for a little child. It's like when I remember when my mum would come in and we'd be in the bathtub, my brother and I, just very little boys, we'd be playing with our battleships and whatever. And my mum would come in, it'd be time for bed or whatever. My mum would come in and she'd just pull the plug. And it'd be like, no, that was the end of playtime. She'd just pull the plug out. It was on a chain, pull the plug out and the water would go down. And there would be this scramble to get out of the bathtub before the water went down the plug hole, because you would feel that if you didn't get out in time, you would probably go down the plug hole too. And it brought up this kind of definitely unfounded and what would you call it? Intangible kind of anxiety or fear that was not really attributable to anything other than imagination. Since, if you're a student of A Course in Miracles or a student of Eastern spirituality particularly, you'll be aware that it's stated that the world doesn't exist. The world is just a dream. It's an illusion, the Maya. Right? It's completely unfounded on anything. It has no premise in reality, since reality is eternal, formless and whole and one. So we look at the world and its form, and it's temporary, obviously not eternal, and all of that sort of thing. So any fear that I have surrounding the world, my passage through it, my transitionary process as I come to the awakening part of my mind, my spiritual awakening. I'm not talking about woke in the world, waking up to sort of government conspiracy, etc., etc. It's nothing to do with that. It includes it, but it's nothing to do with that. God includes everything. You have to include the whole world in exactly as you find it and how you think it is. But the fundamental, the existential anxiety that I'm talking about stems directly from the belief that I'm separated from my creative source. So when we're in the world, we look around, there are people over there, there are situations happening over there. This situation might seem to be happening to me here and now, other things going on. But I seem somehow to be separate, like I don't have to bother with those if I don't want, those are over there. I'm separated out by this span of space and this integer of time. And within all the framework of all of these situational relationships that I find myself in, I sort of weave my way trying to make myself safe and trying to keep myself to the best of my ability out of the firing line of what I perceive to be imminent death. But, pardon me, when I begin to take a really good existential look at my world, and I realize, conceptually at least, in a spiritual sense, that I'm one with everything, that begins to change my perception of the world. And as my perception of the world begins to change, maybe little by little, maybe I've had an experience, maybe something else has happened and it's like shocked my system into a massive change. But whatever it is, that change of mind also, because the body is a construct of the mind, it's either anticipated or remembered from the past and into the future. And you'll have to take that from me as verbatim for a moment until you see it disappear for yourself. Because of that, every time there's a shift in consciousness, every time my perception is changed, even by so much as a little, it stirs up the pot of emotional response that I had established as the defense mechanisms that helped me to weave in and out of the world safely. All of a sudden, the world's not what I think it is, and that's going to sort of rattle the cages and sort of bang on the locks of my self-identity as things begin to shift and change in my consciousness. So don't be surprised that it stirs things up. Don't be surprised that it stirs up emotional responses that my defenses were put in place to try and keep down or to try and ignore. Maybe I've projected out onto other people's situations and events the nature of my own disgruntlement with the world. And now all of a sudden I've got to include that back in because I realised that I was wrong about it. I wasn't separated from those things. Those things are reflections of my own thinking, because there is nothing at all in the world, universe, whatever, that doesn't reflect my thoughts. Right? I take my mind with me wherever I go, and whether I'm consciously aware of my thinking in here or whether I'm seeing my own thoughts projected out onto the universe out there, I am one and I am whole with all things, because everything is I am. Everything is me, is one. So don't be surprised when all that anxiety comes up. Right? Seen rightly, that plug hole analogy of going down the plug hole, that's what's occurring in the moment of your enlightenment. That's what's occurring in the moment of that ultimate step out of the body, out of body, world, universe awareness, and back into higher self, truth, eternal frame awareness, right, or memory. And it's like that threshold that you cross between the realms, that threshold that you cross between the states of mind that represent time and space and the non-linear spheres of experience that represent the truth. That threshold that you cross is a bridge, let's say, between the realms that is comprised of a threshold. It's like an arched bridge. You're going up and up and up and up, or a roller coaster. You go up and up and up and up, and all of a sudden there's that drop, right? And a roller coaster is probably not a great analogy, but a black hole is. You get faster and faster and faster as you're going into a black hole. All of a sudden, because a black hole can even draw in light, therefore you're traveling at faster than the speed of light, you see yourself go in. You overtake yourself to the point where what you're seeing conceptually no longer exist, and you find yourself on the other side of the black hole before you went in. So there's this whole kind of flip, right, that happens in your mind, and it's terrifying. Just for a second, it's terrifying. You've never experienced it before, other than the moment that you experienced it in the idea where you took on board the belief of separation from source, which happened in eternity, not in the world. Okay? In that moment, you were, let's say, sucked out of eternity or drawn into the dream, which was completely terrifying, because prior to that, all you had ever known had been the safety and the love and the bountiful expression, the joyous, limitless expression of the divine nature of your truth, which, when you experience it again in your enlightenment, you won't want anything else. You won't want anything of this world. You won't want to play with the shapes and the forms and anything. It's like, I often have people say to me, well, when we return to the singularity, or when I awaken to the singularity, will I still be able to experience myself in the world playing with people, situations and things in a loving and joyful way? And it's like, well, not really, because the whole moment where you experience yourself as truth, the world becomes meaningless, and truth, which is all meaning, becomes all pervasive in your mind, and the world just fades away, and any interest that you have fades away with it. It's like you're in the world but not of it, and for a moment there may be some residue there. If your mind is not fully purified, there may be some residue of thinking that you're going to have some fun playing in the world, but it's a self-defeating cycle from that point. The realization that there is no world and that there's nothing here but death brings you back again and again and again into your own internal spectrum, where all things are evaluated based on their eternal nature, and anything that isn't eternal isn't true and simply just falls away by itself. So, and in that regard, I guess, be about it. I mean, go out and play with the forms and the shapes and the people and the situations, and let it all just fall apart. And that's one of the things that happens. And for me, having experienced the illumination of my mind, direct union with God in 1997, and there's a funny story I just learned about that one with Annie and Nicole in Byron Bay. I'll tell you in a minute, but for me, all of that stuff, my illumination happened first, and the mind trainings became after. It came after that, about a year after I started a concerted effort with my mind training to try and ground that experience, because I realized that it was my ego had grabbed a hold of it and was turning it into some kind of identity as I don't even know what. I can't even put a finger on it now, but it wasn't healthy. It was just like I was slowly going mad. I was slowly going completely mad. So I recognized the necessity to be about the mind training component of that purification process, and that helped me to ground the experience. And in that participation, I realized the nature of the falling away of the temporal associations of the world from my conscious wants, desires, needs, and everything else, as they had already been then recently fulfilled in the illumination of my mind in their entirety. And anything that I was to look at in the world regarding what I thought I might have once wanted or enjoyed or liked or whatever, paled by comparison, and simply just sort of drifted off into the nothingness from which it came. And pretty much these days I don't have anything that I really get a sense of in the world that I enjoy as far as the physical level of things goes, other than the giving of myself, of my certainty of the fact of the matter which is born of my experience, that the Father and the Son are one, and that life is eternal. I'm a mouthpiece for the universal curriculum in a certain regard, to the best of my ability or to the best of God ability through this avatar, however that looks. And it's one of those things that you can't, I could, like 25 years ago, I could not have comprehended sitting here making a video like this. It would have been impossible. I would have wondered what the heck I was going to say. There's still really nothing to say, but like for a moment, words are helpful, so let's use them for a true purpose and for true helpfulness, and until the point we no longer need them. Thank you. Just got a little prompt from somebody up there. It said, Dave, you no longer need them. But that's on a personal level, I guess. But on a universal level, they're still kind of helpful. So whilst I have this flesh, words, expression, light. I'm wearing my Bill Hicks. If you guys haven't seen Bill Hicks, he's a pretty funny comedian, but I love this t-shirt. I found this somewhere online and I had to have it. So, life is only a dream and we are the imagination of ourselves. It's like, that's pretty accurate. We're not actually the imagination of ourselves. We are the Christ, the Buddha, the Krishna, mind, expression of God, which dalliances in the third dimensional realm for a moment, but through the avatar, that's fairly accurate, and I'm happy to wear the shirt. I had a funny one the other day. I was in Byron Bay with Annie. Oh, just a little aside. The books, we've ordered the books, we've paid for the books, the little booklets. Everyone who's contributed money over the last 12 months or whatever, we've been raising money for these booklets. Thank you kindly. We are expecting a delivery sometime end of November, I think Annie said. There's going to be air freighted. 2,000 are going to go. We've got 3,000 printed. 2,000 are going to Tyna in the United States, and she will distribute them to several other distributors from there. And 1,000 are coming here to Australia, and I will ship them from here. The way we're going to do it is we are not going to be shipping one book to one person. We're going to ship a little stack of 5 or 6 or 10 little booklets to one person, and then we are going to request that that one person in turn also puts in a bit of effort to be about the giving away of those little booklets in the situation where it comes up to do so. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting here for a long, long time, and I'm going to be running to the post office all the time. So if you are somebody that's part of a Course in Miracles group, and you do have a physical get-together once a week, which is quite common. A lot of places do that. If you're not part of that, maybe you could start a little group. We are happy to definitely send you one book for each person or whatever. But here's the funny thing. If you've already got a copy of A Course in Miracles, technically you don't need the little book. I mean, it'll be supplementary. You can keep it in your handbag or in your pocket, and it's a kind of a nice thing to carry around instead of the big book. And it will help you to remember to be about your Father's business and your mind training and everything as the days go along. But these little booklets are more for those who are seeking for the truth but have not found it. Those who are looking for some sort of, they probably don't even really know what they're looking for. They look just out there looking for something to make sense of the world. So in that regard, if you do want some of these little books, just bear in mind it's taken a lot of time, effort, and donations by all of you guys to get these little books. Let's get them to those who really need them. All right? Let's get them to those who are really with their hands out. Thank you, I'm so glad for this information kind of thing. And not just give them to people who've already got a copy of A Course in Miracles. which if you've already got a copy, you should be reading, studying, and doing all you can do to get involved in course curriculum sort of groups and activities and things like that, because it all helps. It's all works together. Anyway, funny story, and this I made a video the other day about Mount Warning. It's the second time I've made such a video about my experience up at Mount Warning. And I was prompted to make that video because Annie, when I was down at Annie's on the weekend, Annie told me that another mutual friend of ours, Eleanor, who's also a Course in Miracles student, also had a very profound meeting Jesus experience on the top of Mount Warning. She didn't go into a lot of detail about that particular experience of Eleanor's, but I'm keen to learn of it, Eleanor, if you are even ever watching this video. I'd love to hear that story. But one of the conundrums, I don't know if you'd call it a conundrum, one of the things that is always, and I'm almost tempted to write it off because of this, but one of the things that's always sort of like years down the track been uncertain to me about the experience that I had. And this relates not to the north, south, east, west particularly, or the hearing of the voice, but the image coming out of the sun. I'm at the point where I'm willing to say I didn't see an image coming out of the sun. It was a solar flare, or it was because my eyes, the sun directly, it was just the sun, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the hand coming towards me as that solar flare or the person stepping out of the sun, that's what my mind made of it. And it seemed very real at the time. But I wouldn't have put much stock in it, I don't think, except for the fact that I heard the voice. And the voice said, go where you want, do what you want, never let go of my hand. And it seemed to correlate with, but the vision wasn't clear, or if it was clear, it was so fleeting that the sun being in my eyes at the same time probably distorted it. I don't really know. So, and the funny thing is, here's another little one of those things. I have a birthmark on my forehead. I was telling Annie this one the other day, and she was like, "What?" And Diana, who's my seamstress making my hemp pants, Diana asked me what this was on my head, and I said, "Oh, it's a birthmark." And then I remembered that my daughter had been going through old family photos and found a picture of me when I was a toddler, and I didn't have the mark. And as soon as she said that, I remembered. My mind flashed right back to a moment in Brisbane, which is one of the capital city of Queensland, Australia, the state of Queensland in Australia. My mother and I was about 7 or 8 years old, crossing the busy road in the city. As we got to the footpath on the other side, this Indian, a Sikh, or like not a American Indian with feathers sort of thing, with feathers. References. An Indian, the southern continent Indian, stepped in front of me and prevented my mother and I from walking past him. And he touched my forehead and he said, "This is going to be your last life." And then off he went. And I've been through those photographs, and prior to about that age, I couldn't find a picture of me with the birthmark. And after about that age, there it was. So what the hell? I don't really know. But the funny thing was, and this is another one, how the mind can just either assume things or remember things not as they were. And you have to remember, in time and space, mind is of the forgetting. Okay, so conscious mind is of the forgetting source, forgetting God, forgetting reality. And we make things up according to our perception, which can be very wrong. So in 1997, when I had my illumination, my experience of enlightenment, out of time, no body, no world, no universe, just the divine expression of I am, God, the golden light, etc., eternity, for want of better words. I felt 100% certain, and my memory of it is 100% certain, that I was 32 years old at the time, and it was just prior to my 33rd birthday. which would have been probably about end of January, February in 1997, when I was sitting with Nicole and Annie just a few days ago. Annie was sort of like scratching her head, and we were talking about it at the time. I was telling her how grateful I was to her for her kicking my ass and making me go to the healing centre where I began my mind training after squandering probably the first 12 months of that illumination experience. And she said, no. She said, your enlightenment, you were 33, and it happened toward the end of the year, September or October or something. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It didn't. I wasn't even 33. I was 32. And that's how I remember it. I remember the specifics. Anyway, Nicole came in, and Nicole was actually there when it happened. And she said, no, it was about September or October because this, because that, and whatever the thing. And I was dumbfounded. I'm like, all these years I've sort of sat and thought, this is how it is, but it wasn't how it is. And it sort of made me realize that in time and space, trying to recall things as they are, as they were, etc., it's like my brain power or my mind power to do that now, because I don't focus on the past. And when I try to draw from experiences in the past, it's like trying to pick up custard. You try to pick up the whole block of custard. Like if you've got cold chilled custard and you make custard slide, you pick it up. You can't. You can only pick up so much, and then all the rest falls away. You can't possibly hold it all. And that's how it feels in my mind, and I've got bits there. And I've noticed again and again and again the nature of memory, which is what this is, as an idea, like time and space in its entirety, just a dream. As I was saying before about the particulars of desire and want to play with the shapes and the whatever and the thing, it's like, well, that all falls away. And it's like my memory of how things actually were seems as if it's falling away as well. So almost to the point where I'm thinking I should go and order online a copy of my own book that I wrote, Truth from the Top Down, so I can remember these things. But now I'm thinking, I wonder if I even portrayed them accurately in that book. But I mean, the general sense of things is accurate, like 100% accurate. And I know people that have read that book and have said to me, yep, that's how I remember you, and this and that and the other. So, thank goodness for that. But I've never been very good with names or dates or things like that. And it just goes to show that that gets kind of worse. So if you're watching my videos and I say something here and then you go, hang on a minute, one of your other videos you said something about, and it was a year later or whatever, it's like, that's probably just me. So anyway, I mean, the whole point of this is to live in the here and the now and not to bother with the past or the future. So to be present, to be conscious. Anyway, that's it, just a short one. And we've got a Zoom on Monday. Tyna is going to go through and vet the list of people who are in the Zoom group, because a great deal of those people no longer show up for the Zoom, whether they got out of it, what they got out of it, whether they just, everything's changed. If you want to rejoin the Zoom group, you can, just have to contact Tyna again. But it's a lot of work for Tyna and Anna and Dana to keep track of everything going on there. If there's a lot of dead wood, if there's a lot of people sort of like taking up sort of resources and whatever on there that aren't actually participating. So there's going to be a bit of a cleaning up regarding that energetically, which will feel good, and it feels good to be doing that. But that doesn't mean to say if you are cut from that list because you haven't been to a Zoom for 6 months or whatever, that doesn't mean to say you can't contact Tyna again. And please do contact Tyna again if you do think that in the future you might like to attend, or you might want to come to a Zoom this week. So it'll be Monday Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time zone. Tyna is putting up the post, I think today, and she'll have the times for America. A few people in Europe and England have expressed to also do a Zoom, so we're looking at the idea of a time zone shift, to do another additional Zoom for those guys. If you would like that to occur and you are in those particular time zones, please get a hold of Tyna and tell her, and she'll make a separate list for the UK, Europe, etc. And we'll get cracking on that. So, peace and love, and remember, it's just a dream. We're just the imagination of ourselves. Don't forget to laugh. I love you. Peace.